Off season is here, but Pro Football Doc podcast means guest season, and we have special guest Dean Blandino, where we actually have a lot in common, he and I. Kind of kidding, and we'll get into that a little bit. And then after the segment with our special guest, we'll get to the rest of the podcast where we do all sports, off-season stuff, and the usual rundown. So here we go with our special guest. We're thrilled to have our very first guest of this off season to be Dean Blandino. He's someone I met down in Phoenix, was super nice to me, and agreed to come on. I ran into Dean, and I think I don't know if I insulted him, but I basically said, look, what I do as Pro Football Doc is the medical Dean Blandino. So with that introduction, welcome to the show, Dean.
Thanks for having me. Definitely not. That was not a. I took it as a compliment. I took it in a good way. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that actually is the quickest thing when I say, what do? I say, I'm the medical Mike Pereira, the medical Dean Blandino, and people instantly get it. And I wanted to have you on because there are actually a lot of parallels to some of the things that we're doing. Now, obviously you're doing it live and on TV and in the big time deal here. But that's kind of what we do, right? In terms of we're sitting here in our command center looking at replays and telling people in real time, Patrick Mahomes has a high ankle sprain. And how will he do in the second half of the game? Or in the Super Bowl, we're sitting there saying, hey, look, he sprained he has a mild aggravation of the high ankle sprain, and how will he do, et cetera. So in some ways, there's a lot of similarities to what we do. And I appreciate your coming on here. And I want to tell people, like, how did you get into this? Is this stressful for you to do these, hundreds of millions of people's instantaneously and just do the analysis? Or is this just par for the course for you?
Yeah, it's become par for the course. I mean, for me with officiating, I usually tell people I didn't choose officiating as a career. It chose me. I didn't have an officiating background, unlike a lot of my peers. I just got involved as an intern at the NFL, and they had a couple of internships available. Interviewed in a couple of different departments, and they offered me a position in officiating. Didn't know anything about it, but I loved the NFL, played sports my whole life, wanted to be a part of it. And it grew from there. And so over the years, spent so much time watching video, breaking things down from that perspective. And I didn't have an on-field background to have to unlearn. With on-field officials, they look at a game a certain way. They have to make split-second decisions in replay. And when we're analyzing plays, it is more analytical, and you have the ability to look at different angles and take more time. And so that's just been my experience. So it was a natural transition to TV to be able to come on and see something and then articulate that and explain it for the fans and the viewers watching the broadcast. And it's been, I know Fox Sports was the first ones to do it with Mike Pereira. And now we've seen a proliferation of rules and, analysts throughout different sports and different organizations. And like you said, David, there's a lot of parallels between what I do and what you do, because you're looking at the video and you're breaking down what's happening, and people want to know. They want to know if Patrick Mahomes is what is the injury, or what's the likelihood that he's going to return. And I think both roles are really important.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point. That's what we do when we're in the command center or out of the office. We have a team of people. It's about get me every replay angle, right? Because on one angle you might not see anything. Like in game, Kadarius Toney, when he was hurt in the AFC in the NFC Championship game, AFC Championship game, we thought it was announced as ankle, but we thought maybe it was his right foot. But it wasn't until we saw the all 22 that we're like, that's an inversion ankle sprain of his left ankle. And we had good confidence that he would return to play in the Super Bowl, right? I mean, you need the right replay angle. How many times for you it looks like a completion? Look at that, the Devonta Smith catch early on. It looked like a completion, but live time was like, he's saying huddle up and snap. That ball's not complete, but it wasn't like until a minute later that you saw the replay where the ball did move, right? When it hit the ground.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I would imagine that's the same when you're looking at the mechanism of an injury. You have to see all the angles and have the ability to then break it down. And we can't make a definitive ruling on a call if we don't have a definitive angle, if we don't have a shot that shows us the football touching the ground or the foot stepping out of bounds, whatever the issue may be. Like I said, that's why I think there are a lot of parallels as to what I'm not sure a lot of people know, and I'm sure you discussed this in terms of what happens at an NFL game and the number of medical professionals that are monitoring those games and watching video and working with the athletes. And it's not just like you and I talked about when we were in Phoenix. You look at the Damar Hamlin situation. It's not just a muscle injury or a ligament injury. It's those types of medical emergencies, and the NFL has all of that covered, which we saw play out with Damar Hamlin, and how and that he's recovering and had a happy ending.
Yeah, and this is what we try and tell people, like, it's not just me, but whether it's NBA or Major League Baseball. First of all, we're better at football because most of the injuries are traumatic in nature, so that you can see it on video, right? If you go to a doctor and you say you hurt your knee playing indoor soccer, the doctor says, what happened? Well, I was
Yeah.
running this way, I got hit on the outside, felt a pop, my kneecap went this way. That's the video, right? And so we're really good at traumatic. Overuse is harder, right? Baseball, or a hamstring. What grade is that hamstring? Or to try and judge the severity of a concussion, very difficult to do. But traumatic injuries in terms of an ACL or a shoulder or a high ankle, that's kind of what we're good at. And looking at video is really where it's at from different angles. And the other thing I think that makes you special that we try and do is, see, rules and you were an official, but what makes you different is, like, you could be a great referee in high school or college, but they can't do what you do because you did it in the NFL and from the control room. You were in the room when it happened, for a Hamilton reference. And that's what we try and do. Get doctors. We have a former Bulls doctor, baseball guy, myself, and others. We were, quote, in the team room when it happened, evaluating for the draft, looking at injuries on the sidelines, in the locker room, and the next day after an MRI. And I think it gives a different perspective to the situation, which is what I love, what you bring to the broadcast, right? You bring this perspective that no one else can have because you were in the room when it happened, and now you can explain it to people.
Yeah, and that was the transition, really, just going from the NFL, their command center, they call it Game Day Central, to our Fox Sports studio. It wasn't much different in terms of the operation, and you've got a monitor wall, and you have all these different games going on, and you have access to the video, and you can run the video back and forth. That's what we did in the NFL in Game Day Central, and we were monitoring their games and communicating with our referees and our replay officials. And like you said, I was in the room for all of these calls, and whether it be championship games or in the replay booth for the Super Bowl. And so that's given me a unique experience that I can now use with Fox Sports and on the broadcast to be able to let viewers in on that process. Here's what they're looking at. Here's what they're talking about. Here's what the referee is communicating to the coach. Because I've been there and done that, and so we can kind of give the fans that exposure to something that they haven't been before, which I think our role provides.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the perspective that we try and have. Now, let's use some of your perspective. Okay, the Super Bowl holding call. We all heard about it. You've talked about it. That your quote of, if it's a foul in the first quarter, it's a foul in the fourth quarter. I guess the question is, was that a was
Yeah,
was it called in the first quarter? Is the question,
yeah.
and the follow up there is, I can't remember the last time, Dean, and I don't keep stats on this, that there was an NFL football game and there wasn't a single offensive holding call all game.
Yeah, so it has happened. It's unusual. Offensive holding is the most called foul pretty much every year, and they're averaged somewhere between 2.5 and 3 offensive holds per game. And I think that defensive hold, obviously, a lot of people wanted to talk about it. I think the first thing you start with, is it a foul? Yes, it's a foul. He grabbed the jersey. That by rule is a foul. Then we get into the consistency conversation. If you call it in the first quarter, you got to call it in the fourth quarter. And I truly believe that. And I think officials, that's their mindset. But I think a lot of people felt like, and myself included, as a fan, you're watching this amazing game and you want to see the Eagles get the ball back and see how this plays out. Are they going to be able to tie the game with a field goal or maybe go ahead with a touchdown rather than see two kneel downs and a field goal? And I think that kind of contributed to some of the outcry after the game. But again, you make a good point, and a lot of people have talked about this. Well, they didn't call. There was one early in the game where they missed the defensive pass interference. They didn't call that. And again, you're just looking for that consistency. Officials aren't perfect. They're not going to make every call that every foul that happens. There's 7 officials. There's 22 players. They're just not going to see everything. That official saw that jersey grab, made the call. And if you don't call it and it has an impact on the play, then you're deciding the game or having a big impact on the game by not throwing your flag. So it's just one of those deals with officiating. It's tough. Sometimes it's one of those calls where whether you make it or you don't make it, you're always going to have people on either side that are going to be upset. And that's just part of it.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing is, I was at the game and I didn't see the holding live right from my seat, and I brought my son to the game, etc. But all the Eagles fans around me were very upset by that, and they were like, the first thing they said is uncatchable. I'm like, holding uncatchable doesn't apply.
Yeah.
But I got confused too until I heard the announcement because the flag came in late. You didn't see the flag until the ball was already thrown over Juju's head. Like, I don't know if the official had a hard time getting out of his pocket. That if the flag were thrown earlier, and yes, the flag was thrown towards the line of scrimmage where the holding happened, but you saw the flag after the ball, you saw the ball in the TV frame. And I think that's what confused people too, because it seemed late after the fact.
Yeah, there's no question. And I think that's it, and it is, because I heard a lot of people say it wasn't catchable. And like you said, defensive holding, that's prior to the pass. Whether the ball's catchable or not, eventually that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. People were talking about, well, he was within 5 yards. That doesn't matter for defensive holding. That can occur anywhere. And I think from a process standpoint, and that's sometimes we tend to see that sometimes. Well, the official threw the flag late. What happened? And you have to think about, okay, that official has a responsibility at the snap based on the look. And that in that instance, it was Smith-Schuster and Bradbury. Smith-Schuster was the widest receiver in the formation, so that's going to be that official's primary. And then they have to watch the play, see the grab, process it, but also officiate the rest of the play. And I think that's where sometimes we get the disconnect with, well, the flag was late. Well, that official's processing what they just saw. They may have it in their mind, I've got a foul, but now the quarterback is rolling out of the pocket. The ball is coming out. They have to continue to officiate the play. And that's why sometimes there might be a late flag, because if you just throw the flag and come in, you're not officiating the rest of the play and something else significant could happen. So I think that sometimes contributes to a late flag, or what we perceive as a late flag,
Right.
because there is that kind of process that the official has to go through.
Yeah, and that confused people. But the other thing is, I think we all saw that late angle, which actually was the angle that the field judge saw, right? And it was very clear tug of the jersey. The original TV angles, you even saw the broadcasters talking about the holding the grab with the left hand around his waist a little bit. That wasn't the call. It was the tug on the jersey and the jersey separating, and from the field judge's angle, that was very clear. And I think if you saw that angle and if TV had broadcast that angle, there'd be less complaints about it, right?
Yeah, I think the initial angle, and that's where that interaction between, whether it's myself or Mike Pereira, who was on the game, and Mike did a great job of communicating to the truck and to Greg and Kevin that no, it happened earlier in the route, because the first replay we showed, it was a little bit later, and that clearly wasn't what the official called. And so we did come back and show the entire route. And I think that gave people a better perspective of what the official saw. And I think that's part of it. That's part of that communication as rules analysts. people only see us come on the broadcast and talk about maybe a replay review or something, but we're communicating with the truck and communicating with the talent on the air throughout the game on things like that. No, it happened earlier, or they've got a hold on the left tackle, so the producer can find that replay quicker, and the announcers can talk about it.
Yeah, and one thing that I noticed, because Sunday Night Football has a former Jaguars athletic trainer on the sidelines, and he does a great job of, I think, pointing out the replays. I notice Sunday Night Football always comes out of TV and has a replay of the injury, a good angle of it, and that's kind of what you guys do too. But a follow-up question on this perspective and angles. I mean, another famous call was that, or non-call, was the Rams Saints game a couple years ago, the pass interference. I defended that side judge there, because when the ball's coming at you, it's very difficult to see, did the ball get to the receiver or not, right? You have the wrong angle. From the side where the TV showed it, it's very easy to see he was really, really early, right? So I guess my follow-up question on some of these is, instead of full-time referees, do we have enough? I mean, NBA went to 3. Do we have enough officials on the field for all the action that's going on?
That's been part of the conversation, even going back. I mean, I could remember this 10, 15 years ago. We studied and tested with 8 officials on the field. A lot of college conferences use 8. We tried, because late 2000s, probably 2008, 2009, the umpire who was in the defensive backfield, we got rid of that position. That was a lot of collisions. It wasn't safe. Wasn't safe for the umpire. It wasn't safe for the players, the receivers and defensive players that are trying to run in that area of the field. So we got rid of the umpire. And that's an extra set of eyes now that is gone, and you have to adjust and account for that. And so we did study looking at an 8th official. I think where the league eventually pivoted to is not an 8th official, but using technology and using replay to help account for that missing set of eyes. And so I think it's a balance. I do think, and I agree with you on that call, and I think that's the disconnect, where the official gets to look at it one time from their perspective, and they may not have the best angle, but we get to evaluate and critique that official based on 5 or 6 different angles from different perspectives and super slow motion. So it's really easy when you're able to look at all those angles, but the official gets one shot at it from their perspective. And I agree, from where the line of scrimmage official was looking, and actually both sideline officials, it was a tougher angle. Should they have gotten it? Yes, they should have gotten it, but it was a tougher angle than what we're able to do with 4 or 5 different angles after the fact.
No question. And they're human. And I think on that Rams and Saints play, some of the referees, after the official original no call, were busy shooing Sean Payton back into the box, right? Instead of conferring and saying, are you sure that might have been early? I saw it from this angle, who knows? I mean, everyone's human, right? A lot of things to talk about. I know you're limited on time. I really appreciate how you come off a big, and we'll talk about XFL. And I think your access in XFL this weekend was awesome. Like to have that in real time like that. And I'm jealous of your replay system. But do you think broadcast is anywhere near ready to have a medical analyst? I'm not sure that they are. Don't speculate on injuries and so forth. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think that's, my experience, and even just from both sides, from the NFL side and from the broadcast side, that's been the mantra, right? Don't speculate on injuries. And obviously in a medical analyst role, that would be a big part of what you would have to do. But I do think there is a need, and I do think there's a place for it. I think we could work around some of that, where you're not speculating, but you're giving an expert opinion based on what you're seeing, and you're not going to come out and say, well, this is absolutely this. But I just go back to the Damar Hamlin situation. There was so much time that ESPN had to fill, and I felt it put the crew in the studio in a tough spot, because they don't know all the medical aspects of what's going on, and it just felt like they were, like the rest of us, just hoping and praying that this was going to turn out okay. Whereas if we had someone like yourself that could have said, and I know you and I talked about it in Phoenix as to what you were seeing and what they were doing with DeMar and the other things, you could have said, okay, here's what happens in a situation like
The
this.
process. That's what
Here's
you
the
do. You and Mike do all the
process.
time. The
That's
process
right.
and what it is.
Here's the
Yes.
process. Here's what's going to happen. And you can walk people through that. And I think if you focus, and I always try to focus on the process, not necessarily the outcome. I think we'll get to the outcome if we focus on the steps in the process. And I think there's a place for it. And I think that, again, there is that concern about speculating about injuries, but I don't think that has to be it. I think there's other opportunities for someone to come in and give a really professional and expertise opinion on what's happening.
Yeah, I'm just jealous of your replay board. That was pretty cool this weekend at XFL, watching that. A couple other things. I know your time is limited. You're super busy. You talked a lot about the tush push play being, maybe illegal, and the scrum and the dangers of it. And I agree with you in the dangers of it. If you notice, Patrick Mahomes never sneaks the ball ever since his kneecap dislocation, right? And so there's injury issue, and we can talk about, is it legal? Is it not legal to help and whatever? But the hip drop, since we're injury related, we've been saying for a while that falling on, and I'm not saying anyone who does it is dirty, but you're just hanging on for dear life and trying to bring the guy down. But I do feel that hip drop play is about as dangerous as, a horse collar. And so I do think something needs to be done about it. And I don't know what sort of rule you would say. You can't leave your feet if you're hanging on to somebody, or so. I don't know what the rule would be, and to make it fair for defenders, but I do believe it's a clear point of danger.
There's no question. I think a lot of the mechanics are similar to the horse collar. And when the horse collar rule came out of the competition committee, every year competition committee looks at the injuries, the major injuries, and we would put that together on the officiating side. That was one of my first jobs when I was an intern with the officiating department, was cataloging the injuries and putting them based on, knee injuries, lower leg injuries, ankle, and head and neck. And they would go through that. And we saw, going through the lower leg injuries, we saw injuries occurring based on this horse collar technique. And we got it out. And now you're looking at this hip drop tackle, or whatever you want to call it, where it's similar, where the defender is leaving his feet and landing on the lower leg. I look at it, though, as the horse collar, the element of the horse collar that's objective and easier to officiate is the grab of the collar, right? That the officials can see. Whereas if we try to legislate every time a defender leaves their feet to make a tackle, that's going to be very difficult to do. And I think that puts a tremendous burden on the defender. And I'm not sure. I think we'd have to look at whether it's the Tony Pollard injury, the Patrick Mahomes injury, if there are others, look at the mechanics of those tackles and say, is there a common thread? Are there common denominators that we can look at, point out, and give to our officials? I'm not sure that we're there yet, but I do agree that it is a point of danger, and I know the league will certainly look at it.
I mean, Kenyon Drake broke his ankle that way with the Raiders, and so it's out there. It's a difficult thing to how do you do it fairly. In some ways, I would say, look, I get the body weight penalty on quarterbacks, but that's very hard to judge sometimes, right?
Sure,
and leaving your feet would be hard to judge, but it is a safety thing. All right. So I wasn't going to ask you this question, but my staff said I had to. It's a silly question, and I used to ask it of NFL officials, and no one ever gave me an answer. So I'm quite sure you will give me an answer as to why. So there used to be historically a goal line extended rule, right? The goal line went around the world, but now you have to bring the ball inside the field of play to score. If that's the case, it seems like people judge the ball hit the pylon and they call it a touchdown, but the pylon sits out of bounds. Like baseball, the foul pole is fair. So shouldn't the pylon either be in fair territory or somehow don't adjudicate by hitting the pylon? Why is the pylon placed there in that rule?
It's a good question. And I think so. The pylon, by definition, is in the end zone but out of bounds, which feels like those are conflicting statements, right? But it is, and I think the origin of the pylon was to identify the intersection of the sideline and the goal line, and to give not just the players, but the officials a point of reference when they're ruling on that. Because that is a difficult play to rule on, where the ball actually crosses the sideline. And they have to do that in the field of play, and it becomes very difficult. Even on replay, without the pylon, it would be very difficult to rule, did that ball cross inside or over that intersection? So you have that pylon there. The goal line still does extend, but only in certain situations. If a runner gets a body part down in the end zone first, before touching out of bounds, then the goal line extends, and then the ball could break the plane outside the pylon. If you don't get a body part down in the end zone and you're just airborne and you land out of bounds, that's when the ball has to cross inside or over. So I think the pylon, it's a good indicator. It's a visual indicator that the nose of the ball touches the pylon. We know it's a touchdown, and that makes it an easier play and allows the officials to officiate it more consistently.
But technically, if the nose of the football touches the outer edge of the
Correct.
pylon,
Yes.
you're technically not crossing the plane.
100%. You're absolutely right. We just don't differentiate between the outer edge and the inner edge, because then it would be almost impossible for the officials, and even in replay. So sometimes we just have to suspend logic for the kind of the benefit of consistency and simplicity.
No, I get it. So technically the rule should be that it's 4 inches or 3 inches extended beyond the sideline of the to incorporate the pylon. All right, so I did that because these guys were egging me on to do that. Look, we're over time on you. I really appreciate how busy you are and that you're coming on. But besides being the medical Dean Blandino, I'm going to close with this, and hopefully it gives you a chuckle. We have one other thing in common, and I'll bet you even my guys and the producers and people that are in the room won't know what it is, and you won't either, Dean, but it's a funny thing. We are two people who have both been on the Dallas Cowboys bus.
Yeah, there you go. Not at the same time, though.
Not at the same time. Not at the same time. I mean, I won't say who brought me on, but it was during a combine. I got a nice little ride on the bus. It's a nice form of transportation. But I thought I'd end with that funny little anecdote that we even have that small little piece of minutia in common.
Yes, well, the combine's coming up in about a week or so. So I'm sure the bus will be out there in Indianapolis. If you're out there, maybe we'll rendezvous on the bus.
Yeah, I think the bus is a one-time thing for me, and it's fine. And the combines, I'm debating going, Dean. I mean, people say I should go, but I don't want to go because I've been to like 21 combines. I mean, I went to the combines when St. Elmo's was the only place to have dinner, right? I mean, and now there's so many places and the habit trails indoors. But the other reason I don't know that I want to go is because it's good networking, good stuff, but I would never go and try and get into the medical side of the combine, which I would be, but I'm in media. I don't want to cross those boundaries.
Sure.
And so, and Indy's cold too. I live in San Diego.
It can be. I haven't checked the weather. I'm in LA, right? I haven't checked the weather. I'm going to check it and hopefully hold my breath and see if we're going to get maybe we'll get a nice warm spell.
All right, Dean, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to take a quick break here. Really appreciate the time. And look, I had no idea you're jumping into all this XFL. You're busier than ever. And, I appreciate your letting me say I'm the medical Dean Blandino. And thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, David.
All right. That was fun talking to Dean there. I could have gone a lot longer. I actually had a list of questions, and I kind of edited them out because they were taking too long, and maybe there should be a part 2, or maybe I'm too talkative or whatever. We had a fun conversation in Phoenix. We talked for a good 45 minutes or something.
No, Dean's great.
He's great. So now we're bringing back in Jacob, and Justin's in the background, and Taylor's here. We had to have Taylor's mic on mute before because, I don't know. I'm just joking around.
No control. Yeah.
No filter over there. Yeah. No, we just figured they were in the room when we did the recording here with Dean, but just too many faces on the thing, too many, too confusing. But let's get to the rest of our podcast here. Actually, a lot going on in sports still, and as usual, we'll let Jacob drive the bus here, not the Cowboys bus, but
Yes.
the Sports Injury Central bus.
Yeah, I'm impressed that Dean had the pylon answer ready to go. He's like, you asked referees live, and they haven't come up with that.
Oh, I know.
that
When I've
logical
asked referees on
response,
the
so,
field,
yeah.
they're like, "Get
Oh,
away from me."
they're like,
They don't want to deal with that. Yeah.
They didn't want to deal with it. I mean, but Dean admitted that it's a convenience,
Yeah.
right? He said, "Yeah, technically,
makes a difficult call a little easier."
But I did
get
learn
it.
that I didn't realize goal line extended still worked. Like if you put your toe into the end
Yeah.
zone, goal line extended would
Right.
work. That's actually interesting.
Yeah.
I did not know
So
that.
you step into the end zone, but somehow the ball is out around the pylon.
So
it still extends.
so really, yeah. So if you're like, let's say an out pattern, if your toe is in the end zone, you can reach around in the out of
Right.
bounds portion and
Right.
cross the goal line extended.
makes
I
sense.
actually
Yeah.
didn't know that. So it was kind of fun. But you guys egged me on. I wasn't going to ask him that dumb question about the pylon.
That's good. I got a good answer.
It's a known loophole that you know about that they know too, and they have a way around it. So.
Yeah, the tuck rule.
Yeah.
This. let's not go there. Anyways,
Yes.
Well, we got plenty to get to, but
yeah.
since we're on the topic, that XFL kicked off this weekend. I found the kickoff rules really interesting. They start 5 yards apart, and they can only start blocking once the receiver gets the ball.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. But the question that I should have asked Dean that I forgot to ask him, and I guess I think I know the answer to this. I still think that referees talking to a pool reporter after the game is
Right.
very helpful.
Right.
Look, it didn't end the controversy that Carl Sheffer said, well, we weren't thinking about anything. We were just getting the mechanics of the call. There was no
Yep.
debate. He pulled on his jersey with his right hand. And I thought that was interesting to just have that out there. And I still advocate medically when there's something that happens, whether it's two or whatever, you have a pool reporter talk to the doctor. Now, if you say you can't, okay, the pool reporter talked to Dr. Alan Sills, or even if the pool reporter submits written questions that then the team PR person can answer. I think that would clear some things up. Like the previous season, Devontae Adams, how did he get put back in the game so quickly? That was never his head. His head was clear. It was about his lungs and air. That would just add something to the equation. Or Tua, yes, it was his back, and we checked him and we did this XYZ. Now, if a player says HIPAA and you can't do it, that's fine. But don't teams all the time talk about knee questionable? That's HIPAA, right? And so they waive HIPAA anyways related to teams and the injury information. So I think that's a necessary component of transparency, and that has helped clear things up with the referees. But Dean Blandino Part 2 podcast.
That's what it sounds like. It sounds like it more and more that we need to do that. Yeah.
All good. Or maybe we'll go to Mike Pereira and do that. No,
Pit them against each other.
They're I'm impressed how well they work together too. I mean, there's no ego there. There's no. I mean, they work well. I mean, they do a great job. All right, so I think that XFL is interesting. The extra rules, going for three is interesting.
Onside kick one too, where instead of onside kicking, you do a 4th and 15, and if you convert it, you get to keep the ball.
Yeah, that's an interesting one too. But in all fairness, I gotta say, James Bradbury, for a second, I held him. I thought I could get away with it, but I held him. There's a chance it didn't work.
He could have extended it.
He could have
flame, yeah.
But just like you say to Jerick McKinnon, don't score, go down because of the clock. You tell them that in the huddle.
Right.
I would think and assume that the Eagles would be saying 3rd and 8, we got to make the stop, but no defensive penalties.
Right.
Because they know you get even automatic first down. I would imagine that's talked about in the huddle
so
too.
Don't try to get away with one. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Don't leave it up to them. Don't put it in their hands. Yeah.
Right. I mean, sure, we're trying to stop them, but the worst thing is not necessarily letting them score a touchdown. The worst thing is giving them a first down
where they can run out the clock.
Where they can run out the clock. That was the worst thing
That's
that could
essentially
happen.
end of the game. Yeah.
So it's almost like I would imagine that they had that discussion and saying, no defensive penalties. Now, jumping off sides would have only been 5 yards. That one gave him the first down and then basically ended the game.
Right.
So I'm sure they talk about that too.
Just to get a little plug in, with draft combines coming up next week, we're going to start rolling out the draft combine little health notes. There's always people coming in with previous stuff. Hendon Hooker, Nolan Smith, Brian Breesy. So a lot of top prospects. Obviously, focus on quarterbacks and running backs, all the skill positions. But we do also have O-line stuff. I mean, that's caused Evan Neal to drop last year's draft. So there's always plenty of stuff to talk about NFL wise. But gotta ask you this question, Doc, because it comes up every time he gets back on a golf course. Is Tiger back?
Well, he's back. He played a tour event, right? He's back playing.
He shot a 67.
He's
on
one of the
third day.
top golfers in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, the only time I shot 67, I quit after 7 holes or something, you know. I mean, counting every stroke. No, he's back. He's a legitimate PGA golfer. He's finished top 50, but he wasn't a threat to win.
No.
And golf is just so competitive across 4 days. I think what we're saying there is he is a great golfer, period. End of discussion. But he's not the same as he was. Partly 47, partly time off, partly he can't get enough practice rounds in to get in the groove because of the foot and ankle.
Right.
He's a top golfer, but I don't think he's a threat to win a tournament at this point in time.
And that's kind of not the question you're answering. Is can he be a top 50 golfer? Yes. Can he be a top 10 finisher every time he steps on the golf course again? It's going to be tough.
He can't be the old Tiger. But to be fair, Tom Brady wasn't the old Tom Brady in this last season, right? I mean, he's still really good and you'd want him as your quarterback, but you know, Father Time was undefeated. Look, it's an interesting question. Would Tiger ever consider a cart? I mean, Casey Martin, they said it was okay.
Only happened once.
I don't know, and I think it's
tough.
I think it's very difficult.
You looked up. Tiger actually said he's that's not him. He would never.
I don't think he would.
Yeah,
I think he'd be bastardizing the game. He's too much of a purist.
Yeah.
I don't think he would either. And you know, I don't know how hilly that country club is. I don't think that hilly. It's if you look at him walk, the limp is on hills, especially downhill. And if you notice when he's picking his ball out of the hole, there's a hitch. When he's almost uses his putter as a little bit of a cane. You saw him get out of the sand trap with a little bit of a cane to help that side. Look, he's made a nice comeback. And don't forget, he's got a spine fusion too. And there are studies about his club head speed and how good it is and how fast it is. But golf's just a really tough sport. It's about, you know what golf is? Golf is like winning that big time, big money DFS contest where there's like 50 or 100,000 participants. I mean, you got to have if you don't have every pick perfect, you're not winning that FanDuel contest.
And you got to be different too. You got to have a weird lineup too. You can't have like
you got to thread that needle to win that.
Absolutely.
And that's a little bit golf, right? I mean, because one bad shot, one bad hole knocks you off, and so it's the consistency across 4 days, and it's all these young, great golfers that.
Yeah,
you know,
John Rahm won at 17 under. It's you got to put together a hell of a tournament to even get close to that. So
he's won 5 of the last 9. He's a little different too.
You put me 10 feet away, a flag stick away, on every hole in regulation, and just say putt. I don't think I'm minus 17 across 4 days.
No, you're not. No,
I mean, you just put the ball. You put it a putter length away. Yeah, I don't know that I'm minus 17. Those fast greens and making every putt. I mean, oh boy, making 17 one putts without a double bogey across, 72 holes. I don't know that I could do that. Forget all that. But anyways, Tiger's great. Look, that's the problem with the Masters. That's the one. It's so hilly there. It's just, and the camera doesn't do it justice. I'm telling you, I've been
all the
lucky
greens, all the
I've
fairways
walked
walking
it.
up.
I mean, been lucky enough to attend, and no pictures, obviously, no cameras, but it's really, it fools you. You know how when you go skiing and you take a picture and you're like, wow, this is a big steep hill. And you take a picture and you frame it, and it's like, it looks like a bunny hill.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the optical illusion of Augusta. I mean, it's the same thing. It's very hilly, and that's where it's very difficult. So we'll see. I mean, I think unfortunately, Jack's majors record is safe. But he's back. It's good to have Tiger back. I mean,
We
We
just
back
the
just
in-
got to
sport,
enjoy having him out there. I mean, it's clear how much it takes for him to even walk a course 4 days in a row. He's talking about all the rehab. He's jumping straight in the ice bath right after he finishes. It's
and this is what we said all along. He's not going to be miraculously better after another off season. This is what this shows. Could he be a little bit better? Sure, I hope he is. But to say he's 100%, no, it's just not going to happen, unfortunately, at this point in time.
We're going to switch sports to the other football, but just want to mention we've been on top of all the off-season surgery stuff. So we got stuff up on Jonah Williams, blanking on some other off-season surgery.
Brock
Dalvin
Purdy,
Cook
coming up surgery.
Yeah, that's coming up on.
I thought you were going soccer there.
miraculous-
You're like the other football.
I am. I'm mentioning the football and then going to soccer.
Well, Neymar action. Yeah, that's what I thought you were going to do.
Switching up on you. So,
Sports injury central.
Yes.
All injuries of note. Yes.
so Neymar injured the same ankle as he did in the World Cup, right ankle. They got a huge match, Champions League, coming up March 8th. By video, what did you see on Neymar, Doc?
Inversion right ankle sprain, pretty significant.
You said grade 3, I believe.
Grade
right?
3. However, because he's done this before, he may have done less new damage, which gives him a chance, right? Unfortunately, soccer is one of those sports where 85% on your ankle, you're not playing, right?
Right.
You got to
You
be
need the
close to 100.
Yeah.
And the conditioning and all that
I mean,
stuff. Yeah.
if this is a Steph Curry situation where he sprains all the time, he comes right back and it looks horrible because the ligaments are all stretched, then he has a chance. So I think he has a chance, not a guarantee. It's not a guaranteed miss. I think he has a chance. So we'll have to see how it goes. And you guys will keep the sick insight numbers
Yep,
ticking on
absolutely.
Neymar and,
Yes.
and what have you.
Giannis too. Giannis flying, getting that right wrist sprain looked at. Any cause for concern? What are they talking about checking out? I mean, he played 20 seconds in the All-Star game, got his points, fouled, and then left him to be the head coach after that.
RIP to the over 23.5 bettors who didn't know that they were doing that. Secretive.
He was like,
I
he
keep
was
telling
plus-
you, unders can pay money too.
I
He was
know,
plus
I know.
650. He was plus 650 to win All-Star Game MVP. Like he
was-
had the second best odds. for
Yeah,
that.
like they thought he was going to be involved. Yeah.
Well, all I can say is that's the ultimate form of elite load management, right? Now,
Definition. Yeah.
Is that load management for the knee or the wrist?
well, maybe both.
The
but,
knee wrist.
with-
Yeah.
no, but
Yeah.
here's my point. I've been saying load management happens in other sports, right? And we see it in the NFL. Kadarius Toney. I mean, was it true load management for the season? No, it was, he didn't get as much snaps or targets because he wasn't involved as much, but his
Right.
ankle was healthy, right? And he had that great return. We see it in football all the time. Red zone targets only, or specialty situations, or work your way back, or preserve your knees. We don't see it in all positions. Offensive linemen's load management are during practice days, right? But we see it in the NFL. But in basketball, do you want to see load management with Giannis? Okay, he suits up every game, but he's only going to play a quarter in some of the games. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a difficult situation. The real only solution, if you really want to preserve guys and do this, is cut the number of games.
And back-to-backs and travel back-to-backs, all that stuff.
But that's revenue.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's hard to cut that.
Yeah.
You're cutting revenue. And NBA is getting expensive. I'm going to I might have to try and pull some strings here. We're going to spring training, and I guess the Suns have a game. And my son's favorite basketball player now is Devin Booker. I don't know why, but okay. So
Sorry.
anyways,
Better options.
I looked at some tickets for maybe when we're out there, they're playing the 76ers or something. They were expensive.
That's why. Yeah.
I was like, geez.
Now they're
That-
crazy.
That's a good transition. That could be KD's first game for them after coming back off the MCL sprain, so that might be why they're pricey too.
Well, I might have to.
There's a new owner too, so
Yeah.
they're putting money where it should. Maybe. Yeah. he
Yeah.
does. Yeah.
Sorry for the old owner, is a San Diego guy.
Yeah. Yes.
He's no longer. But back in the day when they did training camps out here, the Suns, I helped them out some. So I might have to make a phone. I'll buy them face value though, not these
Yeah,
scalper
right.
$600-700 tickets.
No, it's great. It's not even a
That's
playoff
rough.
game, right? You guys said it's not playoffs yet.
Who knows?
so-
But face value might be $500.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Right.
My son lives a good life. all
Yes.
downhill.
Right. I say he went with you to the Super Bowl too,
Yeah,
and
that's
that's
not even
probably
the best game you've seen in Arizona this month.
that's what you said too. I remember you commenting. You were talking to someone like, "This is all Super Bowls for him are going to go downhill now after going to that and seeing probably one of the better games in the last 10, 15
I already know
right?
the next
So-
one. He's going to be bugging me about opening day Padres.
Oh, there you go.
Like, so I've already tried. How's this for a blocker? I said, look, why don't I? He's playing baseball again now. Why don't we? I told my wife, why don't we throw a party on opening day for his baseball team?
Oh,
She
that's
said, "Oh, that's
genius.
good. That's a lot cheaper than buying opening day
Yeah.
tickets, too.
Hell yeah.
That's genius talk.
That's
Heat,
smart.
heat up the pool and get in and hot dogs and Cracker Jack
And we'll have the game on
Watch the
outside.
game on
yeah.
outside.
Yeah,
exactly.
you know,
yeah.
that's the way to go.
Because those are going to be expensive now.
Yeah.
The roster that they have, that's going to be a ticket right there.
We got
Yeah.
plenty of time to get into it and plenty of evidence once the season starts. But Tatis in right field, is there any? I know you've been shouting caution to the
You've
wind.
been against that, I would
Yeah.
say, more hard line. than
moving
that,
him into the outfield.
Look,
with the shoulder
Can-
issue,
can-
wrist
can-
issue.
Can he move to the outfield? Of course he can, because he's a
Extremely
great
talented, yeah.
athlete.
Right.
Okay. But what I was saying about moving him into the outfield with the shoulders, to do it in season is insanity.
Yeah.
Like, boom, we're just going to switch you. I think it's more dangerous in the outfield in a position he doesn't know, especially where they were going to put him in center field,
Right.
especially that guy. What makes Tatis great? He's the Matrix. He contorts his body. He goes all out. He's
Mhm.
that kind of guy. You think he's going to, like, oh, it's a warning track, I better be careful? No, he's going to when he gets hurt in the outfield, it's going to be high speed collision. It's going to be a highway accident, not a city fender bender. But with an off season to work on it, it's a much better chance of success.
Well, remember they had that prospect from the Twins, Royce Lewis.
Yep.
He did the same thing. He was a shortstop. They have Correa there now, and before he crashed in the wall. He had like you said, it's a high speed accident for him, and he was out for majority of the year. And he lost.
Well, that's what I said, to Kevin AC, when it happened. I said, Tribune, who I worked with before. I said, no, that's a bad idea. He's like, why? And I said, look, if your teenager is now driving a car for the first time, you want him to be in the city or you want him to be on a country road at high speeds? I don't think you want him at high speed. In the city, okay, there's more chance at accidents, but they're not going to get injured.
Mhm.
The speeds aren't that high.
The bumps and bruises.
You're going to get fender bender and, but I think they're going to walk away from the car accident.
Right.
That was my worry about Tatis. But with an off season,
Yeah.
right field is better than center field. I mean,
Still the shoulder issue. I mean, he did get it.
He did get
fixed,
surgery,
so
so
maybe
he got
that's
shoulder
better.
fixed,
Yeah.
and we're on record that we're still more worried about the wrist than the shoulder.
Right.
Hopefully, there's nothing to worry about either. The shoulder's pretty reliable, so hopefully that will be the case.
And Russ too. Talking about football, we always say about like Michael Thomas and stuff. If you're a year or so removed from the game, coming back in, it's going to be difficult for him just to hit too, even if he was healthy, right?
Well, luckily he can be at spring training, I believe.
Okay,
So
that
He'll
is
be at
useful.
spring
That's
training,
useful,
then
yeah.
off, and then come back. But
right.
I don't know. I think
Maybe a little
He's so
different.
young and moldable.
I think if you could hit, you can hit.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's a little bit riding a bike. I mean, yeah, is there a little bit get used to it? Sure. But I don't think you forget how to hit.
Okay.
I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's going to be that big of a drop off.
No, it'll be interesting to watch him in right field because no one, just hearing what you hear from Tatis, I'm sure there's no ball hit at him that he doesn't think he's going to make a play on.
He has an arm, right? I would expect him to have some good outfield assists, but I'm just like you
he's
said,
going
I
to go
don't-
crazy,
he's
trying to
gonna go
dive for balls
nuts.
down the
Yeah,
line. And
I
he's-
agree.
if
That's
you're-
him.
Yes,
If there's one way to endear yourself back to fans, it's that. It's
And
play
I feel it's
110%,
interesting.
so.
I
He
think
needs
San
to.
Diego fans are starting to forgive him, and like it's carrying around. And actually, some of the ire is now shifting to Manny because he opted out.
Yep,
if you need a scapegoat, Manny's your man. So,
Yeah.
they did do that. You're right.
Anyways,
Beast of the Week, I got multi-sport athlete DK Metcalf threw down a dunk in the celebrity game. And then, of course, there's that video. You're our go-to video. Is it fake or not, Doc?
come on. What do you think?
You don't think he can jump? He can reach 12 feet in the air? he didn't on the dunk on with the right shoes and bouncy floor. And
First of all,
You don't think that's a real video,
That's
right?
not a
We
real
have to test
video.
you first.
it's not a real
Yeah.
video.
what if Steph Curry jumping that
Oh,
high?
that'd
Would
be
it be
real.
okay? Yeah, that's not real, obviously, but good editing job. But here's the thing: DK Metcalf is an unbelievable athlete.
Yes.
Absolutely. You called him Adonis before
That's
when we were doing his draft.
The only
coverage.
he's one of the only guys who you could have that video and people go, it might be real.
Not even close. I'm too
NFL, the
jaded.
NFL did they want a drug test from him
Yeah, they
immediately.
already drug tested him after the
Immediately, yeah.
Subway All-Star game and that jumping video.
First of all, is that text message real? You could have created
100%,
that.
100%
Okay.
right. Yes. Yep.
Okay, you could have been a Tom Brady promo thing, right? I mean, just like the video Tom Brady, Steph Curry,
Yeah.
the jumping. First of all, is it real? Don't know. You could recreate that pretty easily to make it look like that
Right.
and gather some attention. Second of all, there is off-season drug testing that goes on in the NFL,
it's
just
normal.
like
It's not like
Olympics.
out
It's
of
not
nowhere. Yeah.
unusual to do that. But okay, what are the chances? Look, he made a nice dunk. Okay, he's a tall, big guy. He's
Yeah.
big,
Super athletic. Yeah.
but I don't want this to sound negative, but I guess it's going to a little bit. He steals the ball. It's not like he runs down naturally, like it was like lining it up. Let me
It
get
was
this
a layup, line,
steps,
dunk,
get my feet right, and it was a nice dunk. A guy, if he could jump 12 feet, why does he need to do that?
Yeah.
I mean,
He's
not
no
a
Mac
chance.
McClung.
Not a
If
chance.
Mac McClung did it, I would believe the video was real.
Yeah, and then LeBron's finger
Yeah.
on the. I mean, please, that happens all the time. I mean, come on.
It's just because it was the
It's
first time he
LeBron,
played
Doc.
defense.
Yeah.
It was the first time he played defense that game. That's why everyone's like, oh my God, they played defense once and that happened.
And they had Jalen Brown back wearing a mask. Remember, he had the facial fracture from Jason Tatum's elbow. He said, was a mask buggy out there? Was the question? He said, I mean, it was like a layup line out there, so it wasn't really a real test.
I mean, I know layup line. He did look all right though. I
Yeah.
mean, he was the one passing and assisting more than anybody too. So
He guarded Jason Tatum like 4 times on the floor. They did like 1-on-1. So I don't know.
Yeah, I forgot to watch it. I didn't even watch it.
You didn't miss much.
But see, I mean, why are people? Just a question. Why are people okay with an all-star game for basketball like that when they're not okay with a Pro Bowl like that?
I don't think they're okay with the basketball. Okay, I don't know if people are okay with that.
I mean, it's fun for the players. Run around. They don't get to mess around playing hoops like that, like they did growing up and stuff. So I feel like it's more for the players and a celebration of them. And
It's supposed to be the best
benchmark,
pickup basketball game ever.
no,
That's what it's supposed
It's
to be,
not
though.
pickup intensity though.
It
never will be.
They just did it even more like a pick game. They picked the rosters, the starting lineups right before the game. That's as big.
I saw an
game
interesting
for
stat.
Yeah.
I might have gotten it wrong, but 82 shots from 2-point range. There were 73 of 82. So everything was a layup or at the rim. There were no 15-foot jump shots in that game.
When you said 82, I thought you were going to say from 3.
No,
'Cause
3-point was not that high.
The over under was 324 that game.
Blasted
and it
that.
shot over that.
Yeah.
No, it's all good.
Yes.
It's for the fans. It's
Yeah,
fine.
Absolutely.
But you make a good point. I mean, there's a lot of stopping and change of direction of basketball. So that's why expose them to another game. You're talking about load management. These are all-stars that are playing every time. I know they get 9 days off for the all-star break or whatever it is, but why are you trotting them out there, making them run back and forth for 40 minutes?
Well, I mean, you can't complain about Giannis not being there. He
was there.
He showed up.
He lowered his scoring average. He was averaging 29 in all-star games, and he played 20 seconds, got 2 points, and did a foul and exited.
What's his point per second?
A lot. He's in like 15 minutes in those games, getting like 40.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. We got anything else today to go through? Or are we good? All right. Go to Sick Insights. That's where we're like really dialing up all the quick injury information stuff, off-season stuff. We'll have draft stuff there. And see, this is perfect. Off-season, we have some guests and always fill up our hour, hit the hour,
Absolutely.
etc. Try to keep it to 45 and we never succeed.
Never.
All right. Thanks again. That was our first off-season podcast here. DM me or hit in the replies either to Sick Score at Sick Score on Twitter or Pro Football Doc. What are the guests that you want to see right now? We got a lot of different ones. Von Miller, some basketball stuff.
Yeah, Chris Broussard.
Chris
Nick Wright wants to
Broussard,
come
Nick
on, yeah.
Wright, yeah. So not just football, but we'll cover all different sports and different things. I thought Dean was a fun one, and I wasn't sure how he would take my Cowboys bus reference, but I thought of that
That was
because
good.
and he took it very well. He got some grief for that. I thought it was funny, but
Yeah.
whatever. And of course, what's the question everyone asks about the Cowboys bus?
How nice is it?
Oh, it's nice.
Yeah.
I do not know.
They typically ask about an amenity.
Well, like a
What's
snack
what's
bar on the bus or
what's
something like that.
inside
Or
the
what?
bus? Yeah.
Yes, there is a vertical railing that you can hang on to if you're standing.
Oh, yeah. Of course,
That's all
there's
I'm
one.
saying.
Yes, yes.
That's smart. It
Yeah.
just it's
For
smart to put
safety.
in there. Yeah.
For safety,
of course.
Yes, yes.
Because the bus is crowded and you're standing, it's like a
Yeah.
public. There's a vertical railing that you can hang on to.
Yeah.
Bumpy
Perfect.
ride. Yep.
All right. We're really off the rails now. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.